Hello and welcome to the MentalMusic podcast, a podcast made for teens by teens, exploring mental health from our perspective. My name's Gordon.
And my name's Grace. Today we're talking about social anxiety, or as it's better known, social anxiety disorder.
Just a quick disclaimer before we begin. We're just two 15-year-olds sitting behind a mic, and any advice that we do give should not be considered a replacement for professional medical advice.
And if you're experiencing any mental health issues of your own, please talk to somebody that you know and trust, or go onto our website and find some useful links to some useful sites. So today we're going to have songs by Zoe Zinuch called Anxiety, Joanne and Julia and Nowhere to Look.
But first we're going to have a song by Egg, it's called Nightfall.
You to listen very, very carefully.
So welcome to today's episode, where we'll be talking about social anxiety and what it is. Now, it's typically defined as the fear of interaction with other people. This brings on feelings of self-consciousness and that you'll be negatively judged and criticized by your peers.
Yes, so social anxiety, pretty much, it's when you're anxious to be around friends, to be in a social situation.
Yeah.
If you don't feel that you have the skills to hang around with people in a social situation, it might trigger something in your brain, and you feel, hey, I need to get out of here. I'm not fit for this situation.
What's important to know is that everybody feels a certain point of anxiety in their life. And whereas social anxiety disorder is actually a reoccurring issue that people who constantly feel anxious in social situations and constantly have like an irrational fear of this. So it's like a phobia.
Yeah, and it has many causes. They can be biological, it can be environmental, or they can, sometimes be from the brain structure at birth or over time. So, as with most diseases and conditions, if your family suffers from it, say a sibling or maybe your parents or grandparents, then you are
genetically passed down,
predisposed to be susceptible to taking up that.
It doesn't always mean
disorder.
that you will have social anxiety disorder if your parents or grandparents or aunt and uncle have it.
The chance is higher
Yeah,
than
the chance is a
someone who
lot
doesn't
higher.
have history.
Yep.
Yep. So next up we have brain structure. There's a special thing in your brain called the amygdala. Pretty much, that controls your fear response. So the fight or flight response is controlled by the amygdala, and if that has a heightened sensitivity, then the chance of you experiencing social anxiety is much higher because you feel that it can be sometimes too overwhelming for you, and that can trigger the fear response, and you want to get out of there.
Now, remember when we were researching this, and Gordon was kind of jumping up in his seat. He's going, "Oh my god, this is so cool," and and it is pretty cool because this is just this brain, that part of your brain that's supposed to that's supposed to trigger fear.
Yeah, so it's supposed to help you.
Yeah, it is, and it's kind of like you're having too much of a good thing.
Like a Goldilocks scenario. You can't have everything, and you become
can't be too hot, can't be
Yeah.
too cold. It's got to be just right.
Yeah. If there's too much of it, then you become susceptible to social anxiety because you're scared of most things. Phobias become more common. But if you don't have enough, then you're unsafe, like naturally.
Yeah.
So next up we have environmental causes for social anxiety.
Yeah. So these are causes that may not be caused by genetic or by something biological.
Yeah.
It can be expanded upon if you already do have these biological or genetic factors, but environmental factors can also just occur just in what environment you're in.
Yeah, they can be behavioral things. So if you're around people who suffer from social anxiety, then you can also take up that because you see people being anxious and you feel, hey, something's wrong. Should I be nervous about this? So, say you're in class and you've got an assignment due and you have to all give a speech. Everyone's all crying. They're all.
You're
very mad
going
about
to
it.
be anxious.
And you're next, and you feel, hey, I've done this right.
Yeah, I
So you
actually
don't know
Yeah.
if you should be scared or not, and that can sometimes trigger it.
I have a pretty good example about this actually. It may not just be, this is just like a general part where I felt kind of nervous to do something, but in the Questacon, which is this exciting science museum in Canberra. Yeah. Long live the Questacon. But so there's just this big slide, and it's basically a vertical drop, and then you go on the slide.
Yes.
it's like the most fun thing ever. You get up in a jumpsuit and
and
the booties.
Zero
and
G's for about 2 seconds.
it's a lot of fun.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, and I remember that before I got it, and so I was 10-ish when I did this, so quite susceptible to fear. And the girl in front of me, as she was holding onto this pole, because you have to hold onto a pole and then let go of
Yeah,
it.
so it's on you.
She was screaming. She was yelling and yelling.
I can imagine, yeah.
And so they eventually had to get her up because she obviously did not want to do this. She got on the pole and decided that she was not going to do this. So they had to get her up, and she was screaming. I was going, oh, is this a good idea or not? And so by the help of my other siblings, which are going, Grace, don't, come on, you got to do it, Grace, come on. Otherwise,
Yeah,
you're
the
just...
contrast kind of...
Yeah,
kicks it
just
up a notch.
peer pressure almost.
Yeah.
With my siblings. So I did actually end up doing it, and I did enjoy it. It's just the fact that I felt so nervous just because somebody else before me made me feel nervous with their own anxiety about it.
Yeah, and sometimes environmental things such as having overprotective parents can make you used to having a super easy life. And when you come up to something that you're not used to, say a speech, or maybe you're chosen to give a speech in front of a board of employees, or perhaps assembly, in front of hundreds, maybe thousands of people, that's when it triggers you because you're not used to this, and that's when...
Or just even presenting in class.
Yeah, there you go. That gives you a sense of social anxiety.
I don't think it's really having it being taken easy before, but it's just really the fact that your parents will take care of it for you because they are that overbearing presence.
Yeah, it's sort of their job to...
they
really,
feel like it's their job to do everything for you in a
Yeah.
social situation. Whereas now you're being kind of pushed out on your own and you have to do it. So that's why, like, having overbearing parents can be...
It's again too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
So if you have, if your parents are going too far, trying to keep you safe, and when you have to, for the first time, be safe on your own, it can sometimes be overwhelming.
Yeah. Another environmental factor is bullying. So if you're constantly being bullied for being shy or whatnot, or just in general, you may have a fear of then going into social situations because like maybe they teased you, oh, you're so weird, like you play Pokemon.
Ew.
And so...
Yeah, that can make you feel rather upset.
Yeah, and so when you go into social situations, you may be scared to bring up these things about you. And so I guess enough of this bullying and people telling you that you're weird or that you don't belong, then that can actually trigger you to really bring on these feelings of social anxiety.
Yeah, and it sort of links back to our body image episode. If you don't feel that you're satisfactory, then you can feel very awkward to go into a social situation.
Yeah.
So if you have perhaps another disorder, say Parkinson's disease or stuttering, facial disfigurement, those are pretty extreme examples, but if you feel unsatisfied about yourself when going into a social situation, you feel that would be the deal breaker. That's the reason people wouldn't like you or wouldn't want to talk to you.
Yeah, a good example of just say of stuttering as something that you're perhaps born with. Like if you constantly stutter in a social situation, then you might be used to people saying to you, oh, why are you stuttering, or judging you, or saying, or finishing your sentences, and then you think that, oh, maybe I just shouldn't say anything, maybe I should just keep to myself and not do anything, and then thus bringing on social anxiety disorder. So another one would be family conflict. So if your family is just generally abrasive and says, oh, always shut up, or we don't care about your opinion and stuff like that, perhaps your family is dysfunctional, and so if a dysfunctional family
if there's
and
a history of
you're kind of being pushed around to
not so good
places,
times.
and you'd kind of have to stick into yourself and just be
Yeah.
more introvertedness.
Yeah.
And
So if you're brought up to be introverted, then finally being put into an extroverted situation where someone who is extroverted would cope better, that's when it sort of like doesn't work out for you.
yeah, another important one is also sexual abuse. So it's a huge milestone. We really need to do an episode on this because it really does affect, like, I can think of basically any mental health issue, and sexual abuse will be a cause of it.
It always links to it, yes.
Yeah, it's an awful thing, and of course it affects your social life, your physical, your emotional. It just connects to everything, and it's awful. So with sexual abuse, you may feel like you're not, that you're responsible, and that you shouldn't be talking to people. You feel like you're wrong, and so you may close up and feel more into yourself, or don't want to socialize with people.
Yeah, you may want to feel that you shouldn't be in this situation, and when you're put into it by a task or a job that you have to do, that's when it clicks. That's when you realize, hey, this is not good. I have to get out of here. Yeah. So some risk factors that can be associated with SAD, or social anxiety disorder, can include negative experiences. So if you have memories of certain things that happen, if you have a pessimistic view on them, then it's more likely that you'll associate fear with those things. So say you go to a theme park and you go on this roller coaster and you enjoy it a lot, but later in the day something bad happens. Perhaps you trip and fall over and everyone looks at you and you express your social anxiety. Then your memory of that day, even though it was brilliant fun while you were there, when you look back, it might not have been as good looking.
Yeah.
So another one is temperament. People who have social anxiety or are more timid, more shy than other people, they're more likely to be flamboyant in terms of emotion and mood. So say you're a shy person in class and you're called upon to answer a question, then you're more likely to just have something click in your brain and you overreact, and then you become angry for the rest of the lesson or for the short period of time that you have to answer the question, because you just can't stand the fact that you're given this job that you really do not want to do.
Yeah. I forget something to say about being shy is that you also shouldn't associate having social anxiety disorder with being shy. People can be just generally introverted and shy, and that's okay.
That's perfectly fine.
That's fine. And they may express anxiety in social situations, but it's not all the time social anxiety disorder. Social anxiety disorder is that taking it to another level. It's a phobia. It's a fear of an extremely strong, irrational fear of being in a social situation.
It's perfectly normal for teens, adolescents, to be anxious socially because it's a part of development. So you learn how to interact with people.
Yeah.
But it's the point where, say, you're in adulthood, so you're 30, 40 years old, and you're still experiencing that. That's when it becomes detrimental to your development in later life and also with your job.
There are a lot of teenagers that are diagnosed with social anxiety disorder. We have a friend actually who's diagnosed with social anxiety disorder, and it really is just that that giant phobia and fear of it. Like, just can't deal being in a social situation or being around other people and presenting and all that. So sometimes it does emerge in being a teenager, and sometimes it shows up later in life. It just depends on how things move in your life. Now we're going to have a song by Joanne and Julia called Nowhere to Look.
Somebody tell you faced on the road. I know I let it all go. I believe you left me alone, accepting the fact that you're gone. Now I'm letting you go.
So with people with SAD, do they necessarily know that they are having this irrational fear and struggle with social anxiety?
Yes, so what is it that actually lets them know that they actually have social anxiety and it's not just a part of life?
Well, I saw this on a website, and I think it's pretty good, but it said that yes, a lot of them do know, but it's kind of different from believing or feeling it, that they always have it. So just say if you are diagnosed with something, you may not believe it. And so it does take a lot to analyze what's happening in a situation.
Yeah, and it happens the other way around. If you don't think you have it, but social anxiety itself can make you think that, something's definitely wrong with me. You can choose to self-diagnose yourself with social anxiety, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, if you feel that you have the disorder, then you should definitely seek some help.
The moment when it actually starts to impact on your life and your education and your work life and your family and your social life, that's the point at which you need to go to your GP.
Certainly.
Or just go straight to a therapist or psychologist and ask them to actually diagnose you so that you can go on to being diagnosed and then treated.
Yeah, so they can see what's going on.
Yeah, so with diagnosis, it's not really, they can't really like medically examine you as such, but
it's not something which has any proper physical symptoms. Something's desperately wrong with your brain. It can just be a mindset that you have that isn't, that can be can't be examined.
So usually you'll go to your healthcare expert, and that depends on what where you go to first.
Yeah.
And they'll usually try to get you to describe what you feel in social situations, and they'll try to examine your behavioural patterns when you are put into these social situations.
Yes. So people who work, say at GP, they would ask you questions about. So they'd give you a bit of a questionnaire. Say, how do you feel in this social situation? And if you answer according to certain patterns, then they'd use their professional point of view if you have social anxiety disorder or something else.
Yep. So then if you are diagnosed with social anxiety disorder, you then will probably go on to treatment. Now, you may think of treatment, you may think of just medication. And yes, medication can be something that you go to, and there's lots of different medication. But it is important that you are conferring with your psychologist, and they'll probably refer you to a psychiatrist to refer you to the right medication.
Yeah, it's important once you are diagnosed to keep in touch with the medical officers that you're
they know what they're doing, so don't just self-diagnose and then go after medication.
Yeah, you have to keep in touch with the people that know what they're doing.
Yep. So things that aren't medication that people with social anxiety can use as treatment is cognitive behavioral therapy. So it kind of teaches you how to control anxiety through relaxation and breathing, and how to replace negative thoughts with positive ones.
So it's like meditating, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And then there's exposure therapy, which helps you gradually face social situations and rather than avoiding them. So this might be for somebody who's really, really introverted and really can't go into situations.
Yeah. A small scale version of this would be group therapy. So say you're in it's like an AAA meeting. So you're in a group and you talk about your social interactions and your stories, and that can sometimes help to ease the effects of social anxiety. The more you get used to talking with people, the more you're able to cope with it later on.
Yeah, and in these group therapies, which is, as we said, it's another type of treatment. You can also, they also have like little role-playing situations where you can like reenact how to react in a social situation.
Yeah.
So then on to at-home kind of treatments, just to make yourself feel better while you're at home.
Yeah.
Now this includes stuff like avoiding caffeine because it actually increases your anxiety. So coffee, chocolate, and like soft drinks, that all like, because it's all sugar and like caffeine and all of that, it's the stimulant increases your anxiety.
So it's like with the situation in your brain, if you have an overactive part of your brain, then having an overactive body along with that, it's not exactly going to help. So it's important to avoid binge eating to get over it.
Yeah. Getting plenty of sleep. Now, this just goes just in general for mental health issues. Yeah. Just get lots of sleep because that just levels out everything. So just at least getting 8 hours of sleep, or as a teenager, getting 10 hours of sleep, that will just make everything so much better.
Certainly. Yeah, it's important that especially if you have a particular disorder, it's important to get sleep, because sometimes not getting enough sleep, say you have 5-6 hours of sleep a night or even less, that can lead to social anxiety.
Yeah. And if you do have social anxiety disorder and you don't go after treatment, you don't go to a therapist or anything like that, you shouldn't be doing that. You should always go and talk to somebody about it. Just finding at least like a friend to talk about it, and then just ease your way into these things. But if you leave any mental health issue like just left to brew, and especially
if it's left unresolved, it never fixes itself unless you're trying to make it better.
Yeah, and you can develop like these high risk behaviors, including like alcohol and drug abuse, because in a social situation, a lot of people who suffer from social phobia will try to distract themselves by drinking or doing like reckless things.
Yeah.
Loneliness, you can develop a sense of like severe loneliness,
and that can lead to more extreme thoughts, perhaps of taking drastic action. So thoughts of suicide, thoughts of self-harm, those kind of things can lead from that. So it's important to have a friend, have a best friend that you can talk to freely. It's good to have one person that you can talk to freely. So say a best friend that won't give you anxiety just because it's one person.
Yeah. So you can kind of keep your fears under control by like recognizing triggers that start to make you feel nervous or like out of control or just like anxious.
Yeah, you can also practice meditation and breathing techniques in your own time. So you don't need a diagnosis to need to do that. You can just do that in your own time for relaxation.
Yeah, and if you're prescribed medicine, then always taking your medicine is good. Now, the reason why we're talking about social anxiety disorder is the fact that it's a huge issue. It's one of the third largest mental health concerns after depression and alcoholism. I hope many of you guys listening don't actually suffer from alcoholism, as it is under the legal age.
Yeah. So, pretty much, social anxiety, it's one of... if you take away the things that don't affect teenagers, like alcoholism and drug abuse, most of the time, it's the number one thing that affects people. So if you're in a society which has depression, so if you're in a society that in which the people are affected by depression and social anxiety, then a great percentage of them will be like the fewer disorders that people are affected by, then the greater percentage of those people will be affected by social anxiety. And when you're in a society where most people are affected by I rambled, my bad.
Yeah.
Jeez, I had a point.
Now on to the next part of our discussion. Now, we're going to be talking about the symptoms, so the physical and psychological symptoms, and and then diagnosis and treatment of social anxiety disorder.
Yep. So some symptoms that can come of social anxiety can include physical symptoms, emotional symptoms, and wanting to avoid social situations. So some physical symptoms might be an increased heartbeat, perhaps feeling dizzy when you're around friends or around people that you don't know. And sometimes you can have trouble catching your breath or feel sick.
Yep. Intense fear, like dry throat and mouth, or gummy mouth. Like I get that sometimes when I'm debating, and I just get really gummy mouth
when you speak for too long. And it's just, it gets
So
crazy.
swallowing with difficulty as well. Excessive fiddling. So excessive sweating.
So pretty much, your body tries to distract you from the situation you're in.
Also excessive trembling and shaking kind of thing, and muscle twitching.
Yeah. Sometimes this can actually increase the sense of social anxiety, because if you know you're physically messing up, you're physically not as you should be, then that can increase your sense of inadequacy.
Also nausea, which is like basically the butterflies in your stomach that you're supposed to feel before something.
Oh, yes.
But that times a million. So that's what that nausea is when you have social anxiety disorder.
So you actually feel sick. So it's not just a rush of adrenaline. You genuinely feel like as if you're going to throw up, or you're feeling super dizzy.
And it's kind of normal for everybody to experience a couple of these symptoms here and there, but people who with social anxiety disorder may experience lots of these or all of these, and constantly display them while in social situations.
Yeah, and sometimes to combat these, you can pull some tricks off if you have social anxiety. So some people, they just go to a bathroom, pretty much spend as much time as they can there, or they stay around in not so used areas, the path less travelled. They sit on a bench somewhere in a park when not many people are around. It's also a great way to connect with nature if you have social anxiety. So it's not you and anyone else judging you.
Yeah.
It's just you and whatever you want to do, whatever you want to think about.
Yeah. So then on to psychological or emotional symptoms. So here you may so this is maybe where you worry intensely about social situations, and this may occur days or weeks before an event.
Yeah. So you really don't want to be judged, and your mind kind of it gets into the mindset that this is going to go very badly. This is not what I want to do at all.
Which is what anxiety really is.
Yeah, that's the definition, the bare definition of anxiety.
So just outright avoiding social situations, maybe trying to miss school or work. So just outright trying to avoid it, and in worst days just not doing it. So you can see how this will quickly affect your actual life, and how it'll affect A, your social life definitely, and B, also learning and education and all that.
Yeah, and when it comes to education, it sort of snowballs. If you're missing school on purpose, that can lead to a lack of education, which can lead to a lack of understanding, which can make you even more worried about school and social interactions within.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, school isn't the best place for somebody who does suffer from social anxiety disorder.
Because there are always people around you who are doing the same work as you. So
you're in a constant social situation.
And everyone there can judge you if they really want to.
Yeah.
That's the mindset that really scares most people with SAD. So this episode we talked about social anxiety and the symptoms of social anxiety. We also talked about the risks associated with social anxiety and some of the treatment that you can undergo to minimalise its effects. Next up we have a song by Zoe Junick called Anxiety.
Trapped inside your mind, you can't find the answer. Unknown to your surroundings, cause you're focused on a softer life coming from behind you. Hope it's not the end of your lifeline, but you know it's not. It's just the sound of fear making you believe you're insane. Anxiety is a common word in your dictionary. Anxiety is the excuse your friends think you made up to get out of all of life's hard situations. Scream. You have no strength when you hear them sing a soft death cry coming from behind you. Feel like your life is at the end of the line. but you know it's not. It's just the sound of fear making you believe you're insane. Anxiety is a common word in a dictionary. Anxiety is the excuse your friends think you made up to get out of all of life's hard situations. They say you don't fix your problems, you just blame them on anxiety. Do I blame it on anxiety? Am I relying on anxiety? Do you know what it's like, anxiety? Do you know how it feels, anxiety? It's like I'm falling down a staircase forever. It's like I'm suffocated by a blanket of fear. I'm drowning in air while I watch you breathe. Now does that sound easy? You know it's not. It's always the sound of fear making me believe I'm insane. Anxiety is a common word in my dictionary. Anxiety is the excuse my friends think I made up to get out of all of life's hard situations. They say you don't fix my problems, I just blame them. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I'm glad they don't have anxiety.
Thank you for listening to today's episode, and if we said anything wrong or incorrect, please contact us using our social links, and we'll try to rectify our mistakes.
And if you'd like any music to be played on our podcast, please recommend it to us at our site at www.mentalmusic.org.
If you like the songs in today's episode, check the description, and we have all the links there.
Next up, we're going to be discussing school guidance counsellors and what they can do for you.
If you like our stuff, check us out at mentalmusic.org or visit our social links at mentalmusicpod.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.